Hi there. Welcome to Have It All. I am your host and the creator, Anna K. Morris, and I'm thrilled that you're here because if you are here, it means that you're interested in having it all, or maybe you're curious about what I and my guests have to say about having it all. Can we? Do we know what it is that we want? And once we get it, are we wise enough to know that we have it? And are we worthy enough to hold on to it? That's what we'll be exploring on the podcast. I'm so happy you're here, and let's get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Have It All podcast. And I am your host, Anna K. Morris, who totally just forgot the name of this podcast. We were talking about what we're going to be covering today. I've got the most amazing artist, friend, podcaster, mama, about to be at the CMAs, wearing like the most beautiful dress and hair. If you're watching this and I'm putting video, then you can see that already. Valerie McKeehan. Am I saying your last name right?
Yeah, McKeehan.
McKeehan, on the show today. And I, right before, was like, what's the show even called? Oh, Have It All. It works. It works for everything, right? And I think that you have created such a beautiful, Valerie's an incredible artist, so it really is beautiful life. And I also know that it hasn't always felt on the inside as good as it looked on the outside. And this episode is airing during Christmas, where creativity is at an all-time high, and so is burnout, and so is stress, and so is overwhelm. So when I was thinking about like who I wanted to have on this month, I was like, well, of course, Valerie, because you have walked through the fire of all of that, like way past the holidays and in your normal everyday life. So would you please share with everybody wherever you want to start?
Well, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to just be with you as always, but to have this conversation about creativity during this time of year. And it's what you said, my creativity, I've been a full-time artist. So the artistic side of actually making art with my creativity since 2012. Mm-hmm. And along that path of art making, somewhere along the way, it was joyful and it was fun and I was doing it to light my heart up. And then along that path, it just made a switch. And it was all about, I have to be thinking about the trends and what people are going to like and the perfectionism, the performative nature of it, all just swamped me down to a point that I didn't feel like I was an artist. I just felt like it just felt like working the pen. And if you had talked to me then and you would have said, well, what is it like being an artist? Can you speak to that? I would have had a very different view and saying things like, it's hard. Artists need to suffer. It's difficult to bring something forth and make something tangible. And I think we have that just kind of cultural messaging of an artist, sort of this angsty, struggling, starving, suffering kind of a vibe of an artist. And I get that. I get how that can happen. But through the course of my journey, of course, COVID happens. And I contemplated, do I just quit my business? Do I do something different? Do I become a barista at Starbucks? I was just so done. I was so burnt out. And then I feel like I really discovered my own creativity. I've always been creative, but I like to say your creativity can be a poison or it can be a medicine. And I was poisoning myself with that brand of it, the performative perfectionist brand of it. But when I could let go and really create from a different place and learn what that could feel like, it was like a whole new world opened up. And it's like when you fall in love and love songs finally make sense. And it was like that. And I felt like, oh my goodness, I get it. When people say enjoy the process or art is therapeutic and art can make you feel all of these things, I was like, oh, I didn't get it before. I thought it was supposed to be hard and struggly, but now I get it.
I'm curious because, I'm thinking about this as it relates to holidays and what we see all the time about how it's supposed to be this way. So then when it isn't that way, we think there's something wrong, right? If you're
Yeah.
not falling in love on a tree farm in Vermont, there's a problem, right? Which is
Yes.
crazy.
But it's the expectation
It's an
is so
expectation.
high.
I'm curious because you started out as an artist and you were creative and everything was pretty good, I would guess maybe. What started to derail that?
Pressure. It was really the pressure because creativity and the act of art making, I mean, at its essence, it's unpredictable, it's flaws, it's
Yeah,
messy.
yeah,
It is process. Like you are in process 99% of the time. And then the
yeah.
1% you have, something that you're showing for it. And so then you heap pressure and expectation. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
thing with how we have with the
Yep,
holidays. If you have an
yep,
expectation of an outcome, that this has to be the most magical Christmas that we've ever had,
yep,
then
yep.
you're setting yourself up for the pressure to come in, and then you miss out on the spontaneity and the unpredictability of what could actually be there for you in the present. And that's what I did with my creativity. It was solely focused on the outcome. I thought, I don't have time to play. I've got to get this done. I have to prove myself. You're only as good as the last post that you posted or the last piece that you made. And it was just this constant striving. But the secret is it's never going to be enough. And I often say that art is a microcosm for life. Often how we do one thing is how we do everything, how you show up in
Yes.
your art making. If you're
Yeah.
showing up that way and you're holding on so tightly to that expectation, you're probably showing up to your life that way. And for me, it was very much that when I could deconstruct some of these unhelpful ways of being through
Mm-hmm.
art, I was
Mm-hmm.
able to deconstruct it also just in my life and
Mm-hmm.
take that flow of creativity in other ways as well.
So how do you apply that right now when it's busy and there is still a business to run and there are all kinds of, we both have young kids, right?
Yeah, about the same age
About the same age,
so yeah.
closer. We'll have to get them together at some point. But for people that are listening, they're like, well, yeah, but you're an artist. So I've got a job and I love that we started, offline talking about this book that a friend had just recommended that you just read. You have a membership for artists, for creative people, which is, by the way, everyone. So if you're like, oh, that's not me, I'm like, yes, it is. Go join Valerie's group. Um, about like, how do we infuse that at this busy time of year as a tool to, let's use the podcast name of like have it all, because it's really not the having that we're looking for, it's how we feel, right? when we think we when
100%.
we think that this thing is there, you can actually access it now, not later.
Well, first of all, the word artist, I think, trips up a lot of people.
Mm.
And I hate that because I think there's a lot of art world conditioning that has come on people to think, well, this means you're worthy of an artist and this isn't. I am a big believer that you want to be an artist and you call yourself one and you are. That's it. Because think about how you were as a child. I mean, how if you are drawn to that and you want to make something from nothing, you want to express, and that might be through crayons or coloring or paint or whatever it is, you are worthy of calling yourself an artist, just as I believe my 5-year-old is worthy of calling herself an artist. This is just one of these words that I think has been hijacked. But like you said, as human beings, we are wired this way. We are literally wired to have our thoughts and our emotions and express that and move through that and create something from nothing and puzzle solve and figure things out. That's what we're wired to do, and it takes all kinds of different forms. So I can get on my soapbox about that because I want to empower anybody who feels like, oh, I would love to be an artist, but oh, and I hear this all the time. Oh, I just dabble. I dabble in this. I'm not an artist. I'm like, yes, you are. Own it. You are making art. Therefore, you are an artist. And
Mm-hmm.
I think really, really what it comes down to, and I love, love, love that we brought up this book. It's Your Brain on Art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What it has done is really shown me what I've felt and what I believe to be true, that this is actual and true medicine. The
Mm-hmm.
act of creativity, when you are doing it in a way that sets aside the performative stuff. And I think we've learned a lot of that from school because we get like, this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer, instead of just the play and the joy of it. And we lose that. But this is saying, no, you are wired that way, and when you can allow yourself to do that and play without the expectation of the outcome, go toward what delights you, it is going to rewire the neural pathways of your brain. It is going to help you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and really in every realm. The act of creating and being creative, it touches every single one. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that also in and of itself can be sort of a scary thing because you're like, oh, that can almost add more pressure.
I know.
I
Then it's so significant, so
Yes,
significant.
because I say like I'm the type of person who gets stressed about my stress. so so I
Me
get it.
too. We all
So
do.
what yes. So instead of we can have that knowledge, okay, this is really important, this is significant. But what it boils down to in action is so unbelievably simple
Yeah.
that we can unhook from this idea that it has to be some elaborate thing,
Yeah.
and really just a few minutes of bringing intention to what you're doing. And the way that I like to help people through it as well is, how can you engage your senses, all of your senses? How can you make this a pleasurable sensory experience? And in doing so, you are going to be engaging with the act of creativity. So, even some of the tasks that we have to do, how can we switch that and turn this into a creative act? You had mentioned wrapping presents, even as something that's on the to do list. And we think, oh, we've got to get this done and all the things. And even just with a tiny bit of intention, coming back
Mm-hmm.
to that present moment of what you're doing, the
Mm-hmm.
particular wrapping paper that you choose, like really looking at the sparkles of the paper, maybe letting your mind indulge in that visual stimulation a little bit, maybe listen to the tear of it, the way the scissors are cutting, and be involved in that sensory experience. How can you have a cup of hot chocolate with you, and what are you listening to, and how can you
Mm-hmm.
involve your senses in that act? And then
Mm-hmm.
it takes something that you had to do already, and suddenly you're engaging in it in an art making, creativity filled kind of way.
I love that you're saying that. I earlier this morning I've been like redesigning my website. I'm not doing it, but I'm writing all the copy. And I went to go take a look at what I had, and it was all gone. Yeah.
The worst. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then I was like, I mean, I just went down the rabbit hole, right? And then I was like, oh, but I said I would only do this company if I was having fun. And I'm not having fun right now. So my job is to figure out a way to make it fun. I was like, I bet it would be fun. It was actually not my main website. It was for the holiday course that I have for everybody. And I did it last year, but I did like way too much. And I was like, let me just make a workshop. Like, I don't need a 6-week class. Like, we need like a 75-minute quick workshop. And I went, and because I lost the work, I had to go take a look at like where it was. And I found that I already made the whole course last year. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have known that I already did the work. And also I had made it fun. I put on some like instrumental Christmas music, and I made myself a cappuccino. And I was like, what would I do if I had to figure it out and have fun doing it? was like, well, I would put on music and have a great drink. And that's exactly what I did. I wasn't wrapping presents yet, but I can already see like my angstiness around wrapping presents is that I can't stand the wrapping presents closet because I can't like seem to throw bags away from 1 million 2 and 3 and 4 year old birthdays. And I'm like, those are going in the trash for Friday pickup. Like, it's just like, oh, if I just didn't have all those things that annoy me in that closet, I would love looking at the wrapping paper, and I'm going to buy new wrapping paper.
I
And
love
with
it.
that,
You said the magic word, I feel like, which is what if. If
oh,
you can just incorporate that phrase,
yeah.
what if this
If,
was fun?
what if
What
this,
would that look like?
yeah,
I love that.
yeah,
That is again,
I love
you're
that.
engaging in creativity. That's the curiosity of it. That is engaging with yourself to say, what if this was fun? And then your brain is just going to start searching for
Well,
what you ask it to search for.
like, I love writing. Why am I mad that I have to write copy for this course that I fucking love? Like, why am I getting mad? That's so dumb. That's just an old program. That's just an old program. And the only way I can interrupt it is by being aware of it and laughing at myself and being like, that's so silly, Anna. Let's do it differently.
Totally.
Right. And I think that, I think also speaking to creativity, like we also think that it's a solo thing sometimes. And we don't have really solo lives, especially if you're listening and you have kids, right? Or animals. I was talking to somebody this morning. She was like, well, I get it. I have 5 dogs. I was like, you have 5 dogs. Okay. I just have 2. Like, that's another layer. But like doing activities that include our families in creativity.
It's amazing, again, what that little bit of intention can bring to that. And for the ones who have little ones, they will often have the best ideas.
They're the best
I
ideas.
talk about creativity. It's like
Yeah.
just to even open that up to it, this being a family event, and we can learn so much. I swear, my 5-year-old is my best creativity teacher. I
Oh,
will
yeah.
even paint with her, and she's just like like, and I'm like hesitating in fear at the blank page, and I
Yeah.
learned so much from that spirit, and I think we can just incorporating that into our lives as a noticing their creativity and how you can engage in that as well.
Yeah. So I'm curious, because we are in a busy time of year, how do you switch it? Like when you notice that it's happening, right? Or how do you even notice it sometimes? Like when you get hooked, like how are you able to transform a situation from like being really stressful and overwhelming and like all these things to do and a packed calendar and everything into that curiosity and wonder that I'm really hearing? Like, what are some tools that you have that people can be like, oh yeah, I could actually, yeah, that might actually work for me?
I think the first thing is awareness, which is so good. Sometimes it's just like autopilot. And
Yeah.
if you're used to being overwhelmed, and I get that,
Mm.
especially this time of year, it's almost like, okay, the switch
It's
flipped. I'm in
both.
overwhelm mode. So just bringing an awareness to, I'm feeling this way because I felt this way before, and this is what I know how to feel. And when you are equipped with that awareness and you can bring that into your conscious mind, then you have some options to play with. And just recognizing, okay, this is a program. How do I pattern interrupt this? What
Mhm.
is something that I can do that it maybe even feels a little rebellious at the time
Ooh,
or a little indulgent for you?
okay.
That's like,
Love the
okay,
word.
because you're noticing it and you start to like feel yourself like, oh, okay, what do I need in this moment? Maybe you need to just like take a walk around the block or something like that,
Mhm.
just to pattern interrupt this a little bit. And it's
Mhm.
easier said than done, of course, because these feelings are strong. This what we've always done and how we've always felt is going to be the stronger shouting voice.
Right.
But when you can just pattern interrupt a little bit, it doesn't mean, I think sometimes we make it bigger than it has to be. We think I have to
Mhm.
change my life and I want to be this calm person that wakes up in the morning and has this 2 hour lovely routine with yoga and this and this. And then we think, well, if I can't be that, then I'm not going to do anything.
Exactly.
But but even the stat that we were talking about from your brain on art,
Yeah.
it can take as little as you were saying 45 minutes a
Yeah.
month
Okay.
of
This is the statistic in case people aren't going to read it. Like, I'm not going to read that book because it's a whole bunch of science stuff. Like, I got the one piece that I need to know, and this is it. It's 45 minutes a month. I thought it was going to be a week because I'm an Artist Way junkie. So I was like, oh, it'll be the Artist Way thing. And, 45 minutes a month extends your life by 2 years, which after we get off this podcast, I am totally going and buying that. And it's, what is it? Needlepoint? No, it's not needlepoint. What's the embroidered.
cross stitch.
It's cross stitch. No, it's Clever Poppy. I can't remember. I don't know. I got some ad on Instagram. But I was like, I think I could make that. It's like a stitch for a tree. I was like, I could probably figure that out. And I wouldn't be too upset if it looked like trash. Like, I think that would be, yeah. I don't know about, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, needles with a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old. How's that going to go? Boys, by the way. So I'm like, we might do something different. We'll see. Maybe I'll do that when they're sleeping.
Yes.
But like that piece alone, I'm like 45 minutes a month, I think we could all find.
I think the key is to let it feel good too, because we can also just make that another thing that we're
Yeah.
failing at.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, my 45 minutes of creative time, I'm a failure. I can't do it. And it's like, that can't be
pattern.
another, that's the pattern.
That's the pattern.
Yes, totally. So it literally goes back to what in my physical body of senses that I have can I make this feel good? And maybe that means you put on your fuzziest socks that you have, and that becomes like a tea that you drink, and you have your fuzziest socks while you're doing your cross stitch. And that just feels so delightful to you in the sensory experience of it. And just by being mindful of that, I mean, that's mindfulness. And we all have heard so many of the benefits of just that a mindful practice has. But I think that's another thing that can be hard sometimes for people to wrap their head around, having a mindfulness practice. But it's really just coming into those senses, coming into that moment, and how can you create sensory delights for yourself that you're going to actually enjoy. It's not supposed to be just another thing to check off the list.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's so true, because like, it really is another thing to check off the list so frequently. And it's like, we're missing the whole point.
100%. Yep.
So I'm curious for people who are listening, because I'm like, if I were listening, what question would I have for you? And here's the question. How have you, two pieces. How have you discovered new things that you've wanted to try? And secondly, how do you give yourself permission to try new things and be bad at it?
Such good questions. Well, I feel my experience is that creativity is abundant. And when you open up to that way of being, you're going to find it's everywhere. So then all of a sudden, you might be sparked by whatever you are, sparked by flower arranging. And so then you get into that, and then you're operating in this like lit up creative way. And then you see a really pretty vase, and you're like, oh my goodness, I think I want to do pottery, and I want to try to make this vase for my flowers. And that's how it works.
Okay.
So when you,
it's like pulling the thread through, it sounds like.
Yeah, when you just start opening up to this idea that there's this magic around the wonder, when you're getting curious, it just becomes a little thought. And it's easy to brush away because we all have all the adulting things. And it's easy to brush that away. But if you have that little bit of a thought like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
be fun, and it
Mm-hmm.
feels a little childlike, and you get just that little bit of a, pitter patter about it,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
really how I discover those things. So, I mean, I love dabbling in things. I saw somebody using a dip pen with like a bottle of ink. And I had
Oh
that thought. I
yeah.
was like, oh,
I
ooh, what
have.
if I would, yeah, like how romantic does that feel to write a note with this dip pen? Yeah,
Mhm.
it takes extra time, but again, it's the sensory delight of it. It's the story around it. It's the romanticization of it.
Mhm.
And so then I go from there to spark those things. And then your second question.
And then my second question is how do you let yourself try it knowing that you'll probably be bad at it?
Mm, it's a muscle. It's a
Okay.
muscle. If you're bad at it for a couple times and you can be willing to sit in your own ick and
Mm,
be okay, the
mhm.
more you'll be okay. And what another microcosm of life is
Yeah.
that? If you can use art and these creative practices as your kind of your training ground to let it
Mhm.
be a mess, let it be bad, and let it go in the trash and show yourself, I'm okay. I made something and I spent this time. First of all, it's not wasted time, even if it goes in the trash.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
just building that muscle of being resilient to your own ick. And then it
Mhm.
allows you to
Love that.
try things more freely.
Um, I have also found that I love figuring things out. And when I start something, I know that I'm not going to figure it out in that first run, but I know that eventually I will because I'm not going to quit until I do. And it's actually that feeling, that carrot that's being dangled to me of like, I'm going to have a podcast and I don't know how I'm going to get there. Like, I remember when I started this, and like, I might have to rename it and I might have to not do it as much as I thought and do it less and do it differently. But like, eventually, I will figure out my rhythm that feels great. And I love feeling great. And like, I figured it out. Like, once you finally do, and then once you do, guess what? There's just some other thing you want to do. It's like,
That's just it.
never
I tell
stops.
I tell my members all the time, if I could wave a magic wand and make every painting you do turn out and make you love it
Suck.
all, it would suck. You
That
would
would be
be
so
so
boring.
bored, right? You actually want, we are wired that way as human
Yeah.
beings. It's all the puzzle solving, it's
Yeah.
figuring it out. And
Yeah.
then you make that discovery, and it's like the feeling of that when you unlocked something or did something, it's just like that's what you want. That
Yeah.
feeling is what you want.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my other thought too, I just thought of this
Yeah.
because we were saying about podcasts, and it's like I'm doing this. And I was terrified to do my first episode.
Mhm.
And I was given the advice that regardless of whether you love this today
Mhm.
or you hate it, a
Mhm.
year from now, you're going to look back on it and cringe. So you
Oh,
might as well just do it. And I loved that perspective because we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing. So you're going to cringe at it because you're going to continue to get better. So you might as well cringe at it now and let it be
well,
okay.
well, yeah. And I think that, it's always surprising to me sometimes what hits for people. I think that you as an artist must be like, whoa, you guys like that? Like that was like about to go in the trash, but like you're into this piece. And I mean, for me, like I just discovered that I already made the holiday course that it's already done. I was gonna go remake it, but I was so unwilling to look because I was like, well, it's probably terrible. And then I was like, I started watching, I was like, this is really good. Like if I watched it, this would be like I am very helpful. And then it was really cool because like it actually wasn't ick. And I think that sometimes like I even have resistance to like, oh, that's really pretty badass.
That's amazing. That happens too. Yeah. Where you're
Right.
your own worst critic and then you get distance from it
Mm-hmm.
and it's
Yeah.
like,
It was a year.
"Oh,
Yeah.
I'm actually, I'm actually pretty good. Why was I worried about that?
Have you ever done this too? I mean, I'm going off on a tangent a bit, but like you see pictures of yourself where like I remember feeling and so fat. Like I remember being like, this is awful. I cannot believe that we are going to have a document of this day in this moment. And I look back at those pictures, I was like, I looked great.
That literally just happened to me
Did
because
it?
we
Oh,
have family photos. Most people, we're getting family photos around
oh,
this time for
oh yeah.
Christmas cards and
Oh
everything.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, look at how I looked before. And yeah, no, totally.
I mean, I think it's just so fun and so weird being a human and having all of the feelings that we have. And I'm like, if we can just let ourselves feel them and do it anyway.
Yes. Oh, and that too, I think is the magic also of an artistic or a creative practice, that
Yeah.
it allows you to just be in that. You feel sad in this moment. Well, let's move through that
Oh,
literally through your hands.
yes.
Let's take these moments that are big, even the good feelings. You want to remember a moment or something. Let's document that through a piece of art. Let's solidify that in our brain
Yeah.
through moving it into a form of expression.
Mm. Okay. So I'm curious to wrap up. What's one of the ways that you're being creative this month, specifically around the holidays and that really like is maybe not nostalgic, but like is just so delightful for you? What are you looking forward to this time of year?
So the past couple years, I started making ornaments with my daughter, and it was really simple. We just got clear plastic bulbs, and I had dried flowers, and it's literally just popping the dried flowers into the
Oh,
clear
I could do that.
ornament.
Like we could do that.
She loved it, and it was so fun. You get to pick the colors and just pop them into the ornament. I mean, easy as that. Tie it with a ribbon. And so this year, my daughter is mentioning about doing these ornaments, and I'm like, well, I have so many of those now. We don't need that, but let's do something else. And we ended up, I found this reel that made clay out of toilet paper. I kid you
Wait,
not.
wait,
I
what?
know.
Play?
Like literally toilet paper, like sheets of toilet paper, and then you put water in it, and then it was Elmer's glue and some flour and salt, and it was this thing, and it made this clay, and it was so much fun. This was like Play-Doh. So my daughter is making her ornaments. I made these mushroom ornaments out of toilet paper. And I'm telling you, I should go get it to show you and hold it up.
Can
It
you please
dried,
send it to me
and
so
then
I can put it
I
in the show
painted
notes?
it. Yeah, I painted it. I'll give credit to the Instagram reel that I found
Yeah,
this
yeah,
from.
yeah.
And once it dried, I painted it to look like these mushrooms. They're legit out of toilet paper.
Oh my
Talk
God.
about play and
I have one.
curiosity.
So in my holiday course, one of the bonuses that was anyway, one of the bonuses is how to save and make money at the holidays. So I'm like, you just nailed it. Saving money because you're doing it from toilet paper rolls that you already buy. And then you could go sell those at a craft show.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, yeah.
I'm
I mean,
like,
even the dried flower
I
ornaments,
mean,
or
right.
it's something so simple. I mean, people would
Oh my
love that.
gosh. That's so, but I'm like, I need that because my 5-year-old turned 5 just recently, and he's like, he would love that. He would go crazy for it, right? Like any kind of like
Oh,
stirring up mixture that's not like mud and sticks from the backyard sounds great to me, right?
and she thought it was so silly. Your son probably will too, that it's toilet paper. Like
Oh my
she
god,
loved that, like a
this
kid's
is
dream. Like,
well. So we also have a dog that eats the toilet paper, and so the toilet paper is all over the bathroom all the time. And now we have something to do with it because it's always like shredded and you can't use it. I mean, we can't, but like
perfect.
guest cannot. So, um, oh my gosh, I love this so much. That's a perfect place to end. Everybody, please go and check out Valerie McKeehan. Please tell them your website, Valerie, and where they can find you on your podcast and all the things.
Yes. So I am at ValerieMcKeehan.com, and my Instagram is the same, just at Valerie McKeehan. And I have the Peaceful Creative podcast.
Love it. And you know what? I think that um, what I love about you is that like you've really walked through it, right? And you know like the sword, of both sides of being creative, which is really to be human, right? However creativity is expressed. And anytime we're going so far, it doesn't feel good, right? And so like you've really embodied that balance and bringing back that childlike wonder and making a beautiful life and business for yourself. And so thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I received that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you very much. This was so much fun.
Yeah. Okay. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. And I'll be back next week with another fun guest. Who knows what it'll be? Okay. Thank you so much. Oh, you know what? I'm terrible about doing this. I'm like, oh, and also, I have a holiday course. So if you want to create a holiday that you love, you can go to my website and check out annakmorris.com/holiday course. And it's super inexpensive. And I'm running a buy one, get one free. So you can do it with a friend or family member who needs it. You know what I'm talking about. Okay. See you guys next week. Bye. Thank you so much for being here. It is an honor and a privilege to have this conversation with you as we expand in the world. What is it that we want? Do we believe that we can have it all? I hope this episode gave you some insights and some things to think about, and most importantly, some actions to go and take in your own life. If one of those actions is reaching out to me, I'm so thrilled and honored. You can always find me on my website, annakmorris.com, and you can always send me an email, hello@annakmorris.com. DM, texting, if you have my number, any of that is great too, and I would love to be in touch with you and help you have it all. I love you, and thank you so much for being here.